Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you've been doing well out there. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about something that I haven't brought up on the channel before that I think you're going to be really interested in. And this is why it's such a common chronic issue for so many of us to constantly compare ourselves to others in order to understand ourselves or feel like we have worth or value. So if this is something you're struggling with, I'm really excited to share this with you. I think you're going to get a lot out of this video. I'm going to keep it short and sweet here, but we're going to unpack why exactly it is that you might be prone to chronically comparing yourself, what's actually missing in this case, and how to heal this. So if you're interested, join me. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. So good to be back with you guys here. So, like I said in the intro, chronic comparison is a real issue that I see a lot of my clients struggling with. This is something that often comes up in sessions. And it's really at the heart of a lot of the kind of anxiety and neurotic insecurity and fear and stress about if we belong or if we're going to make it, etc., that tends to come up as part of the issues that we're working through when we're healing, right? So this is a very common, very universal issue that a lot of us struggle with. It causes us a lot of pain and a lot of grief and a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. And I certainly used to be that way, and I know how it is to compare myself to others. I don't do it much anymore, though. So I wanted to just kind of explain a little bit about what I've observed about this. Then I'll share with you what I think is actually going on, why this happens, right? And then I'll give you a little bit of a roadmap here of how to heal this, how to start to correct this, because if you're someone who's struggling with comparing yourself too much, you may already know that this kind of isn't good for your mental health and it's probably harming you or weighing heavy on you or causing you more anxiety, and that becomes counterproductive, right? So if you're someone who likes to compare yourself to others and you're competitive in a healthy way and you feel like this is constructive for you, maybe this isn't the video for you, or maybe not yet. Maybe you haven't arrived at a place of realizing how much that's actually eating at you. But in case you're someone out here who, like many of my clients, is struggling with this and know it's a painful thing, I wanted to give you this. So, what I've observed, first of all, in my own self and in people around me. So, I used to be really, really anxious and insecure socially, struggled with a lot of social anxiety, a lot of not knowing my place or where I fit in, or if I belonged, or if I had what it took for XYZ. And this is something that, I didn't just struggle with in my 20s, which I think is pretty common and normal. It's something I struggled with in my 30s and honestly, even into my 40s. And it took me a long time to heal and fix this, right? But once I fixed this, once I started to heal this, I started to just feel so much better in my own skin, so much happier, so much more at ease, right? And this is something, if I could go back and give to my, 21-year-old self or my 16-year-old self or even my 30-year-old self, I absolutely would, right? What I've also noticed, having the blessing of being around a lot of different people, a lot of creative people, a lot of really smart people, a lot of kind of healer types, a lot of famous people, high performers, etc. Right? I've known a lot of incredible people, if I'm going to be honest. And one of the blessings of knowing this wide variety of people is seeing that the healthiest people I know, mentally and emotionally, the people who are strongest, the most resilient, the most centered, most at ease, the most peaceful, the most kind of charismatic and flowing, these people almost never or very rarely seem to compare themselves to others, right? The more like I'll get in a conversation with these people or just be in their presence, the more I've noticed over the years that they're just really aligned with themselves. They're not so worried about measuring themselves against others. And often, if a person's deeply secure in themselves, they're kind of excited or stoked or encouraging of other successes. There's not a whole lot of jealousy or insecurity or comparing. And in general, when people are really kind of centered in themselves and healthy and happy, it just doesn't occur to them that much. It's more like each one of us is kind of growing in our own lane and our own life path at our own rate, rather than, my life path is a comparison to your life path. And I've got to kind of, measure A against B, right? To people who are really secure, that seems to really kind of not make a whole lot of sense or compute, because obviously each one of us is unique, each one of us is individual, each one of us has different value systems or different needs, or coming from a different starting place in life, or have a different orientation of where we want to go in life. Even if there are kind of parallels and commonalities between those things, each of us is unique, right? And so from that point of view, comparison starts to make less and less sense, right? So I know you can hear that and know that cognitively, but that still doesn't necessarily shift how it feels at an emotional level, that kind of drive and that anxiety. I do want to say, of course, that for a lot of us, who are perhaps a bit more competitive, that there is a kind of probably genetic personality component to it, right? This is something that's really robust in like the big five literature. We know that competitiveness is a part of disagreeableness, and it's to some degree an inherent personality trait. Maybe something you picked up from your family, maybe a mix of nature and nurture. I don't think we have like solid science on that yet, but it's definitely kind of an enduring quality for the people who have that, right? So to some degree, if you're competitive, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And if you're prone to compare yourself a little bit, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Some of that can be inherent, but I do think also a lot of that is socialized, a lot of that is trauma based, and a lot of that is relational about how we were raised in our attachment style and whatnot. So here's what I want to point out to you. What I notice when I talk with my clients over and over and over about their sense of feeling, inferior or not good enough or not okay or not lovable or not likable, et cetera, which are these are common wounds, right? So if that's you too, no shame. Please do not feel bad about yourself for having these feelings. They're super normal, okay? But as I unpack it with my clients, what I see over and over and over is that my clients, and this might sound weird because it is so rare, but my clients, weren't raised really being given proper feedback from their family, from their friends, from their teachers, from their role models, from the people in their life as they're growing up. They generally were not given proper feedback to understand their own strengths, their own qualities, their own positive attributes, perhaps their own kind of shortcomings or weaknesses to work on. In general, if we were raised in a way where we didn't feel seen and we didn't feel connected to, and we didn't get the feedback of what is kind of our natural way or our natural tendency or our natural gifts, so that we could start to recognize them in ourselves and start to own them and kind of deeply integrate that. If we were never, if those around us, especially our parents, never connected us back to ourselves, then of course we grow up with a deficiency of a sense of self. We grow up with a deficiency of clarity about who we are, what our gifts and strengths are, what our capabilities are, what our tendencies are. And without that self awareness, of course, we are going to feel less than, we're going to feel disconnected from ourselves. So we're going to look outward to try to gather some sense of self by measuring, perhaps our behaviors or our goals or our achievements or whatnot against those around us, right? Whether it's our peers or, now with the internet, random people on the internet or people on social media who are influencers, et cetera. I'm sure you know where this all goes, right? And so this is really at the heart of the problem. The heart of the problem is that we didn't get enough feedback about who we are and how we are and what our gifts and strengths are and our kind of natural nature or tendency is. We never got that. So we never clearly were able to integrate that and own that, right? And so this is part of the work. So how do you heal this, right? How do you fix this? You end up starting to attune to yourself more. You spend more time in mindfulness, inquiring, observing, not just what your beliefs are about yourself, not just what your desires are for yourself. I mean, that's all good, but to really start to look more deeply at what are the commonalities of your behavior over time. What are the commonalities of your temperament or your mindset or your emotions? What are the kind of strengths you have, the things that are easy for you that seem perhaps a little difficult for other people? What are the things that are really challenging for you that are perhaps easier for other people, that you could work on, right? What is your natural kind of shape, your natural way of being, your natural mode? Start to inquire, start to attune to that, start to recognize that, start to spend more time just looking at what you have, your raw talents, your raw gifts, your natural capacities and abilities. From there, you can develop those, you can build those up, you can strengthen those, you can really refine those and really bring out the best in your natural way, your natural character, your natural gift to the world, right? This is such a different thing from trying to fit in, trying to keep up with the Joneses, or trying to fit in with how others do things, right? This is a whole other way of looking at it, which is about owning what you already have, valuing what you already have, leveraging what you already have to maximize that to become the fullest version, the fullest expression of who you are. I know, sir, for some of you that might sound a little woo-woo, or a little, little overly saccharine and sweet, or perhaps just like a lot of us don't value what we have. We want to be somebody else or something else, right? Maybe you can relate to that. That was certainly me for a long time, and we can kind of feel like whatever we have isn't going to be good enough or enough in general to get what we want, to which I would say bullshit. Really not true. That is a limiting belief. That's something for you to look at and heal inside of yourself, because the reality is whatever you have inside of you, the gifts there, the wisdom there, the beauty there, the strengths there, the capacities there are really, really unique and precious and native to you. And because they are, native to you but not native to everyone, you have very real gifts you're carrying inside of yourself to give the world. So I would encourage you to explore this. I'd encourage you to look inward. I encourage you to consider that the shape that you are is not wrong. And instead of trying to force yourself to fit the mold of some other preconceived thing, to just lean into what you have here, refine it, develop it into a highly refined, highly evolved, highly expressed version of your natural gifts and tendencies. Again, if you struggle with that, then the first place to start would be to start to work on attunement to yourself, to start to work at seeing yourself, at recognizing your qualities, at learning how to value in the abstract whatever qualities you have, whether that's kindness or intelligence or funniness or wisdom or depth or complexity or simplicity. All of these things are deeply beautiful and valuable, right? So part of the healing here is learning how to value all of these qualities, in the abstract in life in general, and then start to see those qualities inside of yourself. So I hope this is useful for some of you, or perhaps all of you out there. Again, this is something that keeps coming up in client sessions over and over and over. So one of these messages I keep having to pass on to clients is like, working with them to help them to attune to themselves and see themselves and value what they already have, right? By reflecting that back to them. And of course, doing that with them as well. So anyways, much love to you. I hope this message serves you in some way. And I've got tons more on the way soon. Take care.